Hello, 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 and welcome back to Psychology Eats. So, what's eating you? So, today's topic is about, I call this how to deal with a Karen. So, what is happening in or trending that news medias are picking up are stories about Caucasian women who call the police on a black person while the black person is doing a non criminal activity. Basically, just living life, right? So, some of the stories that have headlined in the news and have been picked up by um, bloggers and major news networks. One family was having a barbecue outside in a park, and a Caucasian female decided to call the police on them. There was another story of a couple who were taking pictures in a park, and a Karen called the police on them. There was some kids black kids selling water in front of their house, and a Karen called the police on them. So there are more cases, because every time I look at YouTube or anytime I'm looking on social media, I see another issue with Karen. So the media has dubbed them Karen calls, right? And so I want to look at the psychology of Karen, right? So Karen is typically a middle-aged white woman who is out in the community, usually alone, and she comes across a black person. It could be a female, a male, a group of black people, whatever, and they're doing something that she don't like or she doesn't feel is appropriate. And so the psychology of the Karen is that she feels, right? She feels that she has the authority or the right to confront this black person or Asian or Hispanic, but mostly what we see in the media is black. She has the authority. Where does she get this authority from? Where does she get this feeling that she has the authority to confront these black people or this black person? And that has everything to do with our history and the history of black people in America, history of white people in America, and that relationship that has been horrible, really, since black people were brought into this country, right? So we never had a good relationship. And so we were put in a position, black people were put in this position of being subservient and wrong in the eyes of white people. All right. So our relationship started like that. And over the last 400 years, it has taken on a different shape. You know, we don't have the relationship of the slave versus the master relationship. That's not happening. But we still are living from that experience, in that Karen feels like she is the authority and has the right to tell these black people where and what they should be doing. And so Karen uses her white privilege, which is another trending topic that's being said in the media. She uses her white privilege to call the police. And so she knows She knows that relationship between the police and black people, right? She knows that underlining relationship where the police, in her mind, in Karen's mind, are going to take her side, believe her story, and get these black people in trouble, right? That's the psychology of the Karen. So, where does this all, if we look back in history, and Emmett Till is probably the best example of this Karen attitude. Emmett Till, if you don't know his story, was a 14-year-old black kid from Chicago back in 1950 something. Went to go visit his family in Mississippi. And during that time, it was Jim Crow. So it was separate but equal, right? It was never equal, but it was definitely separate. And so he was down south visiting his family, and he was in a store, and there's different versions of the story about what happened, but basically what he was allegedly, he flirted or he whistled at a white girl while in the store. And this white girl went back and told her family what happened, and her husband and her cousin or daddy or somebody went to the aunt's house where Emmett was staying, kidnapped him from that home, tortured him, tied him to something really heavy, and beat him, shot him. This is a 14-year-old kid. Beat him, shot him, and threw his body in the river. Several days later, his body was discovered. Okay. So, that is the history that we have, right, of this Karenisms, of this act of being a Karen. So, after that, of course, that these white men, they went on trial, they were acquitted, there was never justice for Emmett Till. Years later, they did they had done a biography about him and interviewed the white lady who made this accusation. And she admitted, she's an older woman at that point, she admitted that she lied. She straight up lied. Right? Which caused Emmett's death. So, was that the only story in history? Absolutely not. That had been what was happening in history for a long time, right? Where Caucasian women would make a false accusation against a black man or woman and immediately get that immediate justice of that person going to jail, black person going to jail, prison, whatever, right? So that is in the fabric of our American history. So now here we are in 2020, right? This is not new. It is just being televised. So we are seeing the videos of the nonsense right before us. We're seeing video after video of Karen making these outrageous phone calls to the police because in her mind, the police have the authority, I have the authority, and who are these people to be barbecuing over here, to be in their car in the wrong place, in the wrong parking lot, whatever. The videos are getting more and more outrageous. And so, what would you do if you encountered a Karen? What would you do? How would you respond to her? How would you react to the situation? Excuse me. I think the first thing you have to do is if you're not recording, you should ask somebody who's in the area to record the encounter. right, for your proof. If Karen calls the police, you need to call the police also. And while she's talking to police, you talking to dispatch and giving your version of what is happening. And then what's trending now and what I believe should happen is that if you are the victim of a Karen, you should file an harassment report or claim against this said Karen. And that is what's happening now. People who are being falsely accused or having police intervention, anything, and police are involved, and it's silliness. It's this person, this Karen, just being really a nuisance. You should file a harassment charge claim civilly or criminally, especially if the police become involved and God forbid the black person or whoever is maybe hurt or is ticketed or something that causes you to have, issues in your life that you didn't have to deal with had it not been for Karen making this phone call to the police. And so actually I've heard recently on the news also that there are some states or jurisdictions are trying to come up with a law. I don't know if they're going to call it Karen's Law. I think they should name it after Emmett Till, really. And if you make a false claim in that way, that you should be charged a misdemeanor, calling police unnecessarily. The police got too much other stuff to be dealing with than come in on a Karen call. Because Karen called because somebody told her, that was the last story, I think her name was Amy. She's in the park with her dog off leash. A black man tells her, "Miss, you need to put your dog on a leash." And that turns into a whole mess with her saying, "I'm going to call the police on you." She got on the phone, changed the tone of her voice from, "I'm going to call the police on you," to, "Oh my God, police. There's an African American man here threatening me and my dog." Like, changed her whole tune. She knew what she was doing. That's the psychology of the Karen. That's what Emmett Till's accuser did. Her hands were dirty too, right? Because she knew the power of her words. She knew that would incite a vicious attack on Emmett Till. And that is the same action of the Karen of 2020. So those Karens, they need to know that there's going to be some action behind your lie. There will be action behind your lie. Action in the courts. Action for you to pay for inciting unnecessary, probable aggression that could happen against you, the person you're accusing. So that is just, to me, like the psychology of it. It makes sense that a Karen would think in that way because of the history of our country. The psychology that is embedded in our culture, in our American culture, when it comes to black and white and other relationships. So that's my take on the whole Karenism. Don't forget to like, subscribe, share this video. Remember, if you have a question or a comment, please send it in. I will try to answer it. Or I will make a video, email you back. I appreciate you. Thank you.